very strong opposition to the Waxman-Markey cap and tax boondoggle. That's what it is. It's a boondoggle. This energy tax is the largest tax increase in American history, an estimate of almost $2 trillion tax increase. It will probably cost every family, it's estimated to cost every single family, rich, poor, and in between, over $3,100 for every family in additional energy cost, and will drive millions of good-paying American jobs overseas. In fact, I have several plants in my district in Northeast Georgia that have told me that if this onerous bill passes, that they'll have to lock the door. And those manufacturing jobs will go overseas because they cannot afford to pay this high energy tax. It will devastate their business, and we'll lose jobs. This is an outrageous tax on every family that drives a car, who buys American products, or even flips on their light switch when they come home. So that means you. It means every single family in this country is going to pay over $3,100 per family for this increased energy tax. Senior citizens, the poor, the unemployed will be hit hardest by this tax increase, as experts agree that they spend a greater proportion of what money that they have, their income, on energy consumption and on products that have high energy consumption. This will have higher cost for those goods and services. In fact, it's going to raise the cost of every single product, every single service in this country because of this outrageous energy tax. This is a time when we should be promoting policies that stimulate our economy and not tear it down. Various studies suggest that as many as 7 million jobs will be lost. In fact, our president has held forth as a paragon the country of Spain that put in an energy tax similar to this one, and about the green jobs that were created there. We just talked to a man who serves in their legislature in Spain, and for every single green job produced in Spain, they lost 2.2 additional jobs. So they had a net loss of 1.2 jobs for every job that was created. It's not right. It's not in the best interest of our nation. Make no mistake that the Democrats' airtight tax and cap will suffocate America's small business, and it will strangle America's respiratory system, the free enterprise system. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle will claim that this tax and cap will help clean up the environment. However, this doesn't seem like it's even about the environment or about global warming anymore. This has turned into a revenue generator for Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid for their radical agenda that includes socialized medicine. And in fact, the president said if we don't pass this, that he's not going to have the funds to force down this socialized medicine system that he's proposing down the throats of the American people. It's a socialized medicine system that's going to take your health decisions from you and your doctor and put it in the hands of a Washington bureaucrat. And that's what they want this tax and cap, as I call it, bill passed, so that they can have the money to grow this huge socialized health care system that's going to destroy the quality of health care. Fortunately, Republicans have offered an alternative to this unaffordable energy tax. We believe you can clean up the environment. We can clean up the environment. We must be good stewards of the environment. We can clean up the environment. We can keep jobs and keep money in people's pockets all at the same time. Our solutions include American energy. American energy produced by American workers to create American jobs. Our all-of-the-above energy plan brings us closer to energy independence, which is critical for our own national security. It encourages greater efficiency It encourages conservation. It promotes the use of alternative fuels. And it will lower gasoline prices. Lower gasoline prices. This cap and tax bill isn't the only disguise we've seen here lately. In the last 100+ days, we've seen the following. We've seen a non-stimulus stimulus package. We've seen secretive bills in what was supposed to be an open and transparent Congress. And we've seen bigger government creating trillion-dollar commitments versus fiscal responsibility. In fact, what we have seen is downright fiscal irresponsibility. So far this year, Washington Democrats have forced taxpayers to pay for the following: a $1 trillion stimulus spending bill, a non-stimulus bill, that in spite of the administration's repeated attempts to spin it in a positive light, it's riddled with waste and inefficiency on projects such as a skateboard park in Rhode Island, a new auxiliary runway at Representative John Murtha's airport for no one. It's even worse than the bridge to nowhere, an airport for no one in Pennsylvania. And even checks have been sent to deceased people who've been deceased for many years in Maryland, and who knows wherever else in this country those checks have been sent. We've seen a $400+ billion omnibus bill, a spending bill loaded with more than 9,000 unscrutinized earmarks. We've seen a budget that adds a staggering $13 trillion to the debt. It doubles our national debt over the next 5 years and triples it over the next 10. Triples our debt. Who's going to pay for that? It's stealing our grandchildren's future because they're going to have to pick up the bill. We've seen a $50 billion check written in financial aid to General Motors, which seems to have only brought a bankruptcy filing. And it's only June the 3rd. The sad fact is that this administration has added more debt than every single president combined, from George Washington all the way through George W. Bush. We hear here on the floor all the time that our financial problems were caused by George Bush. But we're creating more debt in the next 5 years. Listen, people, more debt in the next 5 years than every single president from George Washington through George W. Bush all combined created. This eclipse, in less than 5 months, what has taken more than 230 years to establish. And now they're calling for the largest tax increase in American history. Enough is enough. I urge the American people to stand up and say no. No more of these policies that will create more and more debt and will actually bring down our economy, even worse than it is today. And it will steal our children's and grandchildren's future. We must say no to our representatives and senators in this Congress to oppose the Waxman-Markey cap and tax, or as I call it, tax and cap legislation. And we need to begin to returning to some fiscal responsibility here in Washington, D.C. Republicans have offered over and over again multiple alternatives. But the Speaker has been an obstructionist. She's obstructed every effort to get to this floor the proposals that the Republicans have brought. She's blocked every effort that we have had for all of these proposals to stimulate our economy, to solve our energy crisis, to put America back on the right track economically, to solve the housing crisis in America. We've proposed solutions, common sense, market-based solutions that would not have cost American jobs, would not increase taxes, would not have stolen our grandchildren's future. And the American people need to stand up and say yes to all these other proposals and say no to Waxman-Markey, no to the course that this administration and the leadership in this House and over in the Senate are taking us, because it's going to bring financial ruin to America if we don't. So it's up to the American people to say no to your congressman, say no to your 2 U.S. senators, to this tax and trade or cap and tax or tax and cap legislation that's going to ruin America, cost American jobs, and it's going to be a tremendous financial burden on you and your family. So say no and resist this, as we are here on the Republican side in the U.S. House of Representatives. I thank my colleague for yielding, and I applaud all your effort to bring forth our proposals to the American public, the proposals that make sense economically. And I thank you, Mr. Bishop. You're doing a great job, and I applaud that.
Well, I appreciate the gentleman from Georgia being